Welcome to the deep dive. Really glad you could join us. Today we're tackling a big one, artificial intelligence in education.
It's definitely a hot topic.
Yeah, and this is actually a special deep dive. We're working directly from source material that you, our listeners, shared articles, research, some really good stuff focused on AI specifically for educators.
Which is great, gives us a solid base.
Exactly. So our plan is to jump right into this material, pull out the really crucial insights, and basically get you up to speed quickly on what AI means for teaching and learning, like right now.
Because it's moving fast. It's not just theory anymore.
Not at all. It's becoming super relevant, and you need to understand it to use it effectively. We'll also touch on some insights from Kevin Brake's research, which popped up in the sources. Really interesting perspective there.
Important context.
Okay, so let's unpack this. To really get a handle on AI in the classroom, we probably need to start with the basics, right? What is AI fundamentally based on these sources?
Right. The sources point back to John McCarthy. He actually coined the term artificial intelligence. The Deep mentioned is 2007 for the concept crystallizing, though the work started earlier, of course.
Okay, 2007. Feels like it exploded much more recently, but the roots are there.
Definitely. And his definition was essentially the science and engineering of making intelligent machines, especially intelligent computer programs.
Intelligent machines. What did he mean by intelligent there? That feels loaded.
Yeah, it can be. But in McCarthy's context, it was more focused. He described it as the computational part of the ability to achieve goals in the world. So it's about systems that can do tasks we normally think require human intelligence learning, solving problems, that kind of thing.
Got it. Less about consciousness, more about computational goal achievement.
Yeah.
So, okay, how does it do that? How does a program learn or solve problems?
Well, at its core, it's about data. AI systems take in data, lots of it. In education, that could be student answers on a quiz, maybe text from essays, recordings of lectures, you name it.
Okay, data input, then what?
Then it processes that data using algorithms, basically sets of rules or instructions to find patterns or relationships within that data.
Patterns, like seeing that a student keeps getting stuck on a certain type of math problem?
Exactly like that. Or maybe patterns in writing style or common misconceptions across a class. Once it finds these patterns, it builds a model.
A model.
Yeah, sort of representation of the patterns it found. And this model allows the AI to then make predictions or decisions based on new data it sees.
Ah, okay. And the learning part, how does that fit in? Does it just find patterns once?
No, that's the key. It learns through training. You feed it tons of examples like thousands of graded essays or solved math problems. By analyzing these examples, it refines its algorithms and improves its model. It gets better at spotting the patterns and making accurate predictions over time.
So the more data it sees, the smarter it potentially gets at that specific task.
That's the idea. The sources mention this kind of AI family tree, too. You have the broad idea of AI, then machine learning is a subset where systems learn from data, deep learning is a subset of that using complex neural networks, and then things like generative AI. I think ChatGPT are specific applications built on these foundations.
Okay, that hierarchy helps. AI, then machine learning, deep learning, generative AI helps place the tools we hear about.
Exactly. It gives you a framework for understanding the different capabilities.
Right. So taking that process, data, patterns, predictions, learning, how does that actually look in a real classroom? What are the practical applications?
It translates pretty directly. An AI tool might take in, say, student responses from an online learning platform. That's the data input.
Okay.
The algorithms then analyze that data, looking for those patterns, maybe common errors, speed of completion, stuff like that.
Identifying struggles or maybe even areas where a student is excelling?
Both, potentially. Then, based on those patterns, the model it builds might trigger an action. It could suggest specific remedial exercises for a struggling student, or maybe offer more challenging material for one who's ahead.
The sources had some good examples here, like AI tools checking student essays.
Yeah, providing real-time feedback on things like grammar or sentence structure, that's a common one, or using speak recognition, converting a teacher's lecture into text.
Which is huge for accessibility, right? For students who need captions or prefer reading.
Absolutely. Makes content accessible in different ways.
And that anecdote about the middle school teacher juggling, 30 kids, that really stuck with me.
The idea that an AI could monitor performance across all those students, flag the ones starting to slip before a major test.
Yeah, and even suggest specific practice tailored to their weak spots. That feels like a potential game changer for managing a diverse classroom.
It really highlights the potential shift from reactive support to more proactive, personalized intervention. But again, it all comes back to that core process:
Mm.
data, training the algorithms, and the resulting model making informed suggestions. It's not magic.
Right, it's a computational. Okay, so let's talk more about the specific types of AI tools educators might actually encounter or use based on the sources. You mentioned generative AI.
Yeah, that's probably the most talked about right now. Generative AI is the kind that creates new content: text, images, code, music even. Tools like ChatGPT, Google Gemini, those are prime examples.
The ones that can write emails or summarize articles. How would a teacher use that?
Well, the sources suggest things like getting help, drafting initial lesson plans, maybe brainstorming ideas for class activities,
Hmm.
or generating different types of practice questions for a quiz.
Okay, kind of like a brainstorming partner or an assistant for drafting. What else?
Recommendation systems. We see
Yeah.
these all the time on platforms like YouTube or Netflix. If you watch this, you might like this. In education, learning platforms use similar systems. Based on how you're doing or what topics you've shown interest in, they might recommend the next video to watch, the next article to read, or the next skill to practice.
So it guides the learning path in a way.
Exactly. Then there's speech recognition, which we touched on, converting spoken words to text. Tools like Otter.ai or features built into phones and computers.
For transcription, dictation, making notes easier for some students.
Yeah, or creating searchable transcripts of lectures. Very useful. And finally, automated feedback tools. These are things like Grammarly or Quillbot that focus specifically on analyzing writing, usually, and giving instant feedback on grammar, style, clarity, etc.
Helping students revise their work on the spot.
Right. And that anecdote about the high school student using speech to text during lectures, that was powerful.
Yeah, saying it, let them focus on actually understanding the lecture instead of just frantically trying to write everything down.
It shows how these tools aren't just about efficiency. They can fundamentally change how students engage with learning by removing certain barriers.
That's a really good point. Okay, so we have these different tools, these different functions. What are the big wins? What are the main benefits the sources highlight for bringing AI into education?
There are quite a few compelling ones. A huge theme is personalized learning, the ability to tailor lessons, resources, even the pace of instruction to individual student needs. That's something teachers strive for, but it's incredibly hard to do at scale without support.
AI could potentially make that personalization much more feasible.
That's the hope. Another major benefit mentioned is teacher time saving. Think about automating tasks like grading multiple choice quizzes, finding relevant resources online, or even generating first drafts of materials.
Freeing teachers up for what? More complex tasks?
Exactly. More one-on-one interaction, creative lesson planning, addressing social emotional needs, the stuff AI can't do. The sources really emphasize this isn't about replacing teachers, but augmenting their capacity.
Shifting their focus to higher impact activities. Makes sense. What else?
Improved accessibility comes up a lot. We mentioned speech to text, but also things like real-time translation tools. Imagine using AI to translate materials for non-native speaking students or to facilitate parent-teacher conferences across language barriers.
Wow, yeah, that could bridge significant gaps.
It supports diverse learners in general by offering content in multiple formats: text, audio, interactive simulations, allowing students to engage in ways that work best for them.
Keeping them more engaged, too, maybe, through more interactive or adaptive content.
Potentially, yes. And providing things like 24/7 learning support through AI chatbots that can answer basic factual questions or guide students to resources even when the teacher isn't available.
Like homework help, almost.
Sort of, yeah. And the sources also included an administrator's perspective, highlighting how AI could be used at a system level, analyzing school-wide data to identify trends, improving communication with families through translation, maybe even helping allocate resources more effectively.
So benefits for the individual student, the teacher, and the system as a whole. It sounds like AI could make education more responsive, more inclusive, more efficient.
That's the potential, definitely. It's a very appealing vision.
But I sense a but coming. The sources must have raised some concerns, too.
Oh, absolutely. The sources are very clear that alongside this potential come some significant challenges and limitations, things educators really need to be aware of.
Okay, let's get into those. What are the main hurdles or downsides we need to watch out for?
One major issue is the quality of the data AI is trained on. If that data is biased, incomplete, or reflects existing inequities, the AI's output can perpetuate or even amplify those biases.
So garbage in, garbage out, essentially.
Pretty much. And related to that is the issue of hallucinations. Sometimes AI models generate information that sounds plausible but is actually completely false or nonsensical.
That's worrying, especially if students or teachers take it as fact.
Exactly. Critical evaluation is key. Another limitation is context. AI often struggles with understanding nuance, the specific classroom dynamic, a student's emotional state, the creative intent behind an unconventional answer. It operates on patterns, not deep understanding.
It might miss the why behind the data.
Precisely. Then there's the risk of over-reliance. If students lean too heavily on AI tools for, say, writing essays or solving problems, could it hinder the development of their own critical thinking and writing skills?
That's a common concern, right? That it becomes a crutch instead of a tool.
It's definitely something educators need to navigate carefully. And of course, huge practical concerns around data privacy and security. Using AI tools often involves student data, and ensuring that data is protected and used ethically is absolutely critical. Schools need robust policies and vetted tools.
Can't just use any free tool you find online.
Definitely not. And the sources also point out that AI generally struggles with subjectivity and complex human expression. Creativity, emotional depth, figurative language. These are areas where AI often falls short.
That teacher anecdote about the AI grading the essay really hit this home for me.
The one where it flagged a metaphor as an error.
Yeah, because it couldn't grasp the figurative meaning, it just saw it as factually incorrect. It perfectly illustrates that need for human judgment, especially with creative or subjective work.
It really does. It underscores that AI is a powerful tool, but it's not a substitute for human expertise, empathy, and nuanced understanding.
Okay, so we have these powerful tools, but they come with risks like bias, hallucinations, lack of context, potential over-reliance, privacy issues, and struggles with nuance. Given all that, how do the sources suggest educators navigate this responsibly? What are the practical tips?
The sources offer some really solid, actionable advice. A huge one, maybe the biggest, is critically review AI output. Always. Never just trust what the AI generates without checking it yourself. Use your professional judgment.
Don't just copy-paste. Verify.
Exactly. Think of it as human-AI collaboration. Use the AI as a starting point, an assistant, a brainstormer, but you are the expert who refines, adjusts, fact-checks, and ensures it's appropriate for your students and your context.
So blend the tech with your own expertise.
Right. And be especially cautious using AI for grading highly subjective work, like complex essays or creative projects, where that nuance is so important. Maybe use it for initial checks on mechanics, but not final evaluation of ideas or style.
Makes sense. What about guiding students?
That's crucial. Educate students about what AI is, how it works, but importantly, its limitations. Teach them that it can be wrong, that it might be biased, and that they need to think critically about its output too.
And how to use it appropriately, right? Following school rules about plagiarism and academic integrity.
Absolutely. Setting clear expectations and guidelines for how to use these tools ethically as part of the learning process, not as a way to bypass it. And underpinning all of this is prioritizing privacy. Only use tools approved by your school or district that comply with data protection laws like FERPA or GDPR, depending on where you are.
That privacy point feels critical. And the sources also brought up another big issue, equity.
Yes, the digital divide is a real concern here. Not all students have equal access to the necessary devices or reliable internet outside of school.
That anecdote about the student without home internet access who couldn't use the AI learning app really highlights the problem.
It does. If we integrate AI tools heavily into required coursework without addressing that access gap, we risk widening existing inequities. It becomes another barrier for some students.
So part of responsible use is also advocating for equitable access and being mindful of not creating assignments that disadvantage students who lack resources.
Exactly. It's a systemic issue that needs attention alongside the pedagogical ones. And, this whole conversation about navigating the complexities, the potential, the pitfalls, the need for informed use ties directly into the insights from Kevin Brake's research mentioned in the sources.
Ah, yes, Kevin Brake. His work focuses on how teachers engage with technology, doesn't it?
Right. And the sources pulled out a finding from his research that feels particularly relevant here. It really gets to the heart of what's needed for educators.
What was that key finding?
Essentially, Kevin Brake's work underscores that teachers need to move beyond just basic familiarity. They need a deeper understanding of how AI functions, its capabilities, and its limitations to truly leverage it effectively in the classroom.
Not just knowing how to click the buttons, but understanding the why and the what if.
Exactly. There's a quote attributed to him in the source material that sums it up perfectly.
What was the quote?
It's along the lines of teachers need to know more about effective use of AI in the classroom.
Teachers need to know more about effective use of AI in the classroom. Simple, direct, but really powerful. It connects everything, doesn't it? Understanding the core tech, the tools, the benefits, but also grappling with the limitations, the ethical questions, the equity concerns. All that knowledge is what allows for effective use.
Precisely. It's about moving from just using the technology to using it thoughtfully, strategically, and ethically, making informed decisions about when AI adds value, when it might pose risks, and how to integrate it in a way that genuinely supports student learning. Kevin Brake's point highlights that human element, the teacher's understanding and judgment, remains central.
So, as we bring all these threads together from the source materials we've explored today, what's the main takeaway? If someone listening is trying to process all this, what's the bottom line?
I think the core message is that AI is undeniably a powerful new force in education. It offers really exciting possibilities for personalizing learning, boosting efficiency, and increasing accessibility. It has huge potential.
But it's not magic, and it's not perfect.
Exactly. It comes with significant limitations, bias, context issues, privacy concerns that have to be managed carefully. It's a tool, a very capable one, but still just a tool that requires skillful and ethical handling.
So, the path forward isn't just adopting everything wholesale.
No, the sources suggest a more measured approach. Continued experimentation, yes, but also collaboration among educators to share what works and what doesn't. And critically, always prioritizing informed, ethical use that centers on student well-being and learning outcomes.
Experiment, collaborate, stay informed, and keep the focus on the students. That sounds like solid advice. Okay, as we wrap up this deep dive based on the materials you shared, here's something for you, our listener, to think about. As AI continues to weave itself more deeply into the fabric of education, how do we educators, students, parents, policymakers collectively ensure that this technology truly serves to enhance learning and promote equity for all students, rather than accidentally creating new divides or unforeseen problems?
That's the critical question we need to keep asking ourselves.
It really is. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive today. If you found this helpful, please do like this session and maybe leave a comment sharing your own thoughts or experiences with AI in education.